Speed isn't winning anymore. The real advantage now comes from strategic clarity, and most people miss this shift entirely. Businesses and leaders are quietly prioritizing clear, focused strategies over rushing to the next move. This change hits you directly, because without it, your efforts waste time and money chasing the wrong goals. Your career, your projects, everything depends on understanding when to slow down and think sharply. What's driving this shift is a fundamental change in how success is defined and measured. I'll break down the exact mechanics behind this new priority and what it means for your results. By the way, this channel shares one bold insight like this every week. If this perspective is useful, consider subscribing. We live in an era obsessed with speed. Faster launches, quicker pivots, rapid scaling. The dominant narrative is clear: move fast, break things, disrupt everything. But this fixation on velocity masks a critical blind spot. Speed without strategic clarity is a recipe for chaos, not success. Right now, this misconception isn't just a theoretical problem, it's a systemic flaw undermining entire industries and organizations. Here's the deeper consequence. When speed trumps clarity, organizations become reactive instead of proactive. They chase trends, scramble after competitors, and burn resources on initiatives lacking a solid foundation. This reactive posture fragments focus, making it nearly impossible to build lasting value or coherent brand identity. Investors and stakeholders start losing confidence because what looks like momentum from the outside is actually a house of cards internally. The fallout? Increased employee burnout, high turnover, and innovation that's incremental at best, not the game-changing breakthroughs leaders claim to want. Another layer to this is how technology has accelerated information flow, but not decision quality. The pressure to process endless data faster leads to superficial analysis and hasty conclusions. Leaders who once had time to deliberate now find themselves drowning in noise, mistaking activity for progress. This shifts power dynamics in organizations. Decision-making authority often migrates away from experienced strategists toward those who can deliver results fastest, even if those results are short-lived or misleading. Over time, this erodes institutional knowledge, making companies vulnerable to disruption from more disciplined competitors who prioritize strategic patience. On a personal level, this speed over clarity culture extends to career development. Professionals are pushed to accumulate credentials, job changes, and visible wins without the space to deeply develop expertise or meaningful networks. The consequence? A workforce that's adaptable on paper but lacks true mastery or strategic vision. This creates a vicious cycle where talent is churned rapidly and companies invest heavily in onboarding without ever capturing long-term value from their people. It also fuels an unhealthy, always-on mindset, where individuals prioritize hustle over thoughtful career planning, increasing stress and reducing overall effectiveness. Finally, the broader economic implication is that markets become less stable and more prone to bubbles. When everyone chases the next big thing at lightning speed without cohesive strategy, resources get misallocated on hype rather than fundamentals. This inflates valuations temporarily, but sets the stage for sharp corrections and crises. The companies and sectors that survive these cycles are those that resisted the speed trap and maintained strategic discipline. This pattern is quietly reshaping competitive landscapes across industries. And the winners will be those who understand the real value isn't speed, it's clarity. Now, zoom in on how this shift in value from speed to strategic clarity recalibrates leadership itself. The archetype of the move-fast leader, celebrated for quick decision-making and bold, immediate action, is losing relevance. Instead, leaders who demonstrate patience, deep analysis, and an ability to say no to distractions gain disproportionate influence. This creates a new leadership hierarchy where emotional intelligence and cognitive restraint become core competencies. For organizations, this means succession planning and leadership development programs must evolve, or risk promoting leaders who are out of sync with the strategic demands of the era. Failure to adapt leadership criteria sets companies up for repeated cycles of costly missteps and eroded trust from both employees and investors. Another consequence lies in how this clarity-first mindset reshapes innovation pipelines. Instead of a scattergun approach, flooding the market with incremental updates or me-too products, companies begin concentrating resources on fewer, well-defined initiatives. This forces a reckoning on resource allocation. Budgets, talent, and time become tightly linked to projects with clearly articulated strategic fit. The implication? Innovation shifts from volume-based to quality-based, raising the bar on what gets greenlit. While this can slow the number of new releases, it increases the likelihood that those releases have meaningful impact. The downside is less tolerance for experimentation and higher stakes on initial success, which can stifle some risk-taking, but reward disciplined execution. On the competitive front, this dynamic creates a divide between organizations that manage to internalize strategic clarity and those that remain stuck in speed frenzy. The gap isn't just about market share, it's about resilience. Companies laser-focused on clarity build antifragile structures, processes, and cultures that improve through stress rather than crumble. In contrast, speed-obsessed competitors become brittle, prone to cascading failures when market conditions shift unexpectedly. This bifurcation intensifies market consolidation as agile clarifiers swallow or outlast speed-driven rivals, concentrating power and influence in fewer hands, often reshaping entire sectors in the process. Finally, consider the long-term psychological impact on the workforce. Valuing strategic clarity over speed requires cognitive bandwidth and emotional stability, a shift that challenges prevailing workplace expectations. Employees must cultivate deeper focus, critical thinking, and the patience to engage with complex problems over time. This recalibration can lead to a more engaged and intellectually fulfilled workforce, but may also alienate those conditioned to thrive in a high-velocity, reactive environment. The tension between these two mindsets risks creating internal cultural divides, affecting collaboration and retention. Companies ignoring this cultural evolution risk internal fragmentation that undermines their strategic clarity advantage from within. Beyond internal culture, this emphasis on strategic clarity reshapes external stakeholder relationships in profound ways. Customers and partners grow increasingly discerning, expecting consistent value aligned with well-communicated vision rather than flashy but fleeting offerings. Companies that articulate and deliver on clear strategies build deeper trust and loyalty, enabling premium pricing and long-term contracts. Conversely, firms stuck in speed mode struggle to maintain credibility, facing customer churn and skepticism. This dynamic pressures entire supply chains and ecosystems to adapt, favoring collaborators who can commit to aligned, sustained goals over opportunistic quick wins, fundamentally altering industry alliances and negotiation power. Meanwhile, regulatory landscapes respond subtly but decisively to this shift. Governments and watchdogs notice that speed-driven companies, under pressure to move fast and break things, often generate externalities: data breaches, product recalls, or unethical shortcuts. As strategic clarity demands more thorough planning and risk management, regulators increasingly favor firms demonstrating disciplined governance. This results in tighter compliance requirements that, paradoxically, reward companies embracing clarity while penalizing those chasing speed at the expense of due diligence. The regulatory environment thus becomes a reinforcing mechanism that widens the gap between clarity-focused organizations and their frenetic competitors. On a macroeconomic scale, the shift towards strategic clarity influences capital allocation patterns dramatically. Investors, once dazzled by explosive growth metrics, recalibrate their criteria to prioritize sustainable profitability and coherent business models. Venture capital and private equity funds increasingly favor startups and companies that articulate strong strategic narratives and demonstrate disciplined execution. This realignment constrains funding for hypergrowth, speed-first ventures, redirecting capital flows toward entities with clearer, longer-term value propositions. The consequence: innovation timelines extend, market entry strategies become more deliberate, and financial markets evolve to reward durability over hype, reshaping not just individual companies, but entire capital markets. Finally, the shift challenges traditional educational and training paradigms. Academic institutions and professional development programs focused on rapid skill acquisition and breadth now face pressure to emphasize depth, critical thinking, and strategic judgment. This transformation demands curriculum redesign and new pedagogical approaches that cultivate patience and analytical rigor.